I was 65 years old when my only son, the boy I had raised with everything I had, stood in the cold lobby of a nursing home in Texas and told me I was broke, worthless, and better off staying there. He left me with nothing but a single suitcase of clothes and a broken heart. 6 months later, that same son came crawling back to me, tears in his eyes, begging for forgiveness. Why? Because he had just discovered that the inheritance he thought was waiting for him, the money, the property, the investments, all of it had been donated in secret to his ex-wife's charity. The look on his face was priceless, a mixture of rage, disbelief, and regret. And in that moment, as he begged at my feet, I smiled. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know, you might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. I had always thought of myself as a strong woman. Life hadn't been easy, but I had fought my battles and survived them all. I lost my husband when I was just 48. He had been a kind man, a hard-working electrician who left behind a modest inheritance. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't poor either. Through careful saving, investing, and a little luck, I managed to grow what we had into something that could one day give my son, Michael, a comfortable life. Michael was my pride and joy, or at least I believed he was. From the day he was born, I poured all my energy into raising him. I skipped vacations, worked late shifts, and even sold jewelry my mother had given me just to make sure he could attend good schools. When he was accepted into college, I cried tears of joy, thinking all my sacrifices were finally worth it. But as he grew older, things began to change. At first, it was subtle. He started borrowing money from me. Just until next week, Mom, he'd say. Then the borrowing turned into demanding. He wanted a new car, he wanted help with rent, and he wanted me to cover his debts from bad decisions. I told myself it was just a phase, that young people sometimes make mistakes. But in truth, it was the beginning of his greed showing. I noticed the way he looked at my house, at my savings account, at the jewelry I had left. It was as if he was counting what would one day be his. That should have been a red flag, but a mother's love blinds her to many things. Then came the day that shattered everything. Michael showed up at my home one evening with papers in his hand. He said I was getting old, that I couldn't live alone anymore, that the house was too much for me. I laughed at first, thinking it was his way of showing concern. But then I saw the way his eyes flickered with impatience, the way he shifted when I resisted. The next morning, he drove me to a nursing home. I thought he was just showing me around, maybe suggesting it for the future. But when we got there, he carried in my suitcase. He had already signed the papers. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're broke and worthless now, Mom. This is where you belong." I will never forget the sound of his footsteps walking away while I sat there, frozen in disbelief. The nurses tried to comfort me, but nothing could mend the wound he had carved into my soul. The first few weeks were the lowest point of my life. I cried at night when no one could hear me. I questioned everything I had done. Was I a bad mother? Did I spoil him too much? Did I fail to teach him kindness? But as the days passed, I found something unexpected inside those nursing home walls. Kindness from strangers. The staff treated me with respect. Other residents, many with their own sad stories, became my friends. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as someone's mother, not as someone's bank account, but as a person. It was during those quiet nights, sitting in my small room with nothing but a lamp and my thoughts, that I made a decision. If my son saw me as worthless, then so be it. But I still had value. I still had power. And I knew exactly how to use it. Because what Michael didn't know was that I wasn't broke. Far from it. I had investments tucked away. I had property he knew nothing about. I had accounts that he never touched. And with every fiber of my being, I vowed that he would never see a single penny of it. Instead, I found someone far more deserving. Michael's ex-wife, Sarah, had been like a daughter to me once. She was kind, gentle, and full of compassion. When she married Michael, I thought she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. But he treated her poorly, just as he treated me. He took her for granted, drained her emotionally, and in the end, pushed her away. After the divorce, Sarah didn't turn bitter. Instead, she poured her heart into building a small charity that helped single mothers and struggling families in our town. She worked tirelessly, never asking for anything in return. That kind of goodness deserved to be rewarded. So, I began making quiet arrangements from the nursing home. Meetings with lawyers, letters exchanged, documents signed. I started channeling everything, my savings, my investments, my property, into her charity. Each time I signed a paper, I felt a little piece of my broken heart heal. I wasn't just taking revenge on Michael. I was building a legacy. Months passed, and I lived quietly, never letting on what I was doing. Michael never visited, never called. I was dead to him. And honestly, I thought I had accepted that. But then one evening, 6 months after he abandoned me, the impossible happened. The doors of the nursing home burst open, and there he was, Michael. His hair was disheveled, his eyes red from crying, his voice trembling as he fell to his knees in front of me. "Mom," he whispered, "please, please forgive me." I looked down at him, my heart pounding, because I knew what was coming next. Michael knelt on the floor of the nursing home's common room, his hands trembling as they clutched at my knees. For a long moment, I couldn't move. I simply stared at him, my son, the same boy I once carried in my arms when he scraped his knees on the playground. But now he was a grown man, broken in a way I had never seen before. "Please, Mom," he whispered again, his voice hoarse. "I need your help." The room fell silent. Other residents and nurses glanced our way, but no one interrupted. It felt as if the world had frozen, waiting for me to answer him. My lips pressed together, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reply. This was the same man who told me I was worthless, the same man who left me here like a burden to be cast aside. And now, suddenly, he remembered that I existed. I stood slowly, removing his hands from my knees. "Get up, Michael," I said coldly. "You're embarrassing yourself." His face twisted with desperation, but he obeyed. He got to his feet, wiping at his tear-streaked cheeks. For a moment, he seemed like a lost child again, but I forced myself not to soften. I had to hear what he wanted and, more importantly, why he was here. "What do you need from me?" I asked, because I know it isn't forgiveness. He swallowed hard. It's money, Mom." There it was, the truth. I should have been surprised, but instead, I felt a bitter laugh rising in my throat. Of course, it wasn't about love or regret. It was about greed, the same thing that had poisoned his heart for years. "What happened?" I asked flatly. "You finally run out of credit cards to max out?" His jaw tightened. "It's not like that. I was counting on my inheritance. I thought I'd have something after Dad's accounts, after your savings. But—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes darting nervously. "But what?" I pressed. He hesitated, then blurted out, "It's gone, Mom. All of it. Everything I thought I'd inherit, it's not there. The lawyer said you donated it to Sarah's charity. Tell me it's not true." The air left the room like a balloon popping. I could almost hear the silence thundering in my ears. So this was the moment. He had finally discovered what I had done. I kept my face neutral, though my heart raced. "And if it is true?" I asked. His voice cracked. "Then you ruined me. Do you understand? You've taken everything from me and handed it to her." I tilted my head. "Funny," I said quietly. "That's exactly what you did to me 6 months ago." His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He had no defense, no excuse. He knew it too. Now, let me pause here for a moment and explain how we got to this point, because this didn't happen overnight. When I first began transferring my wealth into Sarah's charity, I did it quietly, in pieces, so that Michael wouldn't notice. My late husband had taught me the value of subtlety when it came to money. "Never show the whole deck," he used to say. "Keep an ace tucked away." Sarah's charity was small at first, operating out of a cramped building with peeling paint. She worked with single mothers who had been abandoned, women with nowhere else to turn. She gave them food, helped them find jobs, even offered childcare so they could attend classes. Every dollar I sent her was stretched to the maximum, used to change lives. And each time I saw her updates, the photos of smiling children, the thank you notes from families, I knew I had made the right choice. My money wasn't sitting in some account waiting for my ungrateful son to waste it. It was building something real, something that mattered. Of course, I knew eventually Michael would notice. His greed wouldn't let him ignore it forever. But I had expected anger. I had expected shouting, threats, maybe even a lawsuit. I hadn't expected him to come crawling on his knees like a beggar. And that was almost worse. Back in the common room, Michael was pacing like a caged animal. "You don't understand, Mom," he said. "I'm in trouble. Serious trouble. I owe money, lots of money. If I don't pay it back," he trailed off. But the fear in his eyes told me everything. Debt collectors, loan sharks, maybe worse. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for him, but I couldn't. Not after what he had done to me. Not after the cold words he had spat when he dumped me here. "You made your choices, Michael," I said. "Now you live with them." He slammed his fist against the wall, startling a few residents. "You can't do this to me. You're my mother." I stood tall, staring him down. "And you're my son, the one who abandoned me. Do you think those words mean nothing?" For the first time, he had no answer. His shoulders slumped, his fight draining out of him. He looked so small, so defeated. And yet, I couldn't forget the cruelty in his eyes when he left me here. That night, after he left in a storm of curses and threats, I lay awake in my bed, torn in half. A mother's love doesn't vanish, no matter how much hurt it endures. I remembered his first steps, his first words, the way he used to hug me after nightmares. But those memories clashed with the man he had become: selfish, greedy, heartless. I knew he would be back. Men like him don't give up easily, not when money is involved. The question was, how far would he go to get it? The answer came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I heard shouting at the front desk of the nursing home. My stomach twisted when I recognized the voice. Michael. This time, he wasn't begging. He was furious. "I know she has money," he roared. "You think she's broke, but she's hiding it. She's lying to everyone. Tell her to come out here and face me." The nurses tried to calm him down, but he shoved past them, storming down the hallway. Doors opened as residents peeked out, frightened by the commotion. My heart pounded as his footsteps grew louder, closer. And then, suddenly, he was standing in my doorway, his eyes blazing with rage. "You," he spat, pointing at me. "You think you're clever, don't you? Giving away what's mine. Well, guess what, Mom? I'm not leaving until you fix this." I rose slowly from my chair, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from anger. "And what exactly do you expect me to do, Michael?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "If you don't give me what I want, I swear I'll make your life a living hell." The room went cold. For the first time, I realized just how dangerous my own son had become. Michael's words echoed in the small nursing home room like thunder in a valley. "If you don't give me what I want, I swear I'll make your life a living hell." I had heard many cruel things in my 65 years, but never from my own son with such venom. For a moment, I could hardly breathe. My hands clutched the arms of my chair, not out of weakness, but out of restraint. I wanted to scream at him, to slap him across the face the way my own mother once did when I dared speak to her without respect. But instead, I forced my voice into a steady calm. "You already did that, Michael," I whispered. "The day you left me here." His jaw tightened, his nostrils flared, but I could see it, the flicker of guilt behind his rage. He tried to mask it with more anger. He leaned in close, so close I could smell the faint stench of whiskey on his breath. "You think you're smart, Mom," he hissed, "donating everything to Sarah, making me look like a fool. But listen to me, you're not untouchable. I can make things very uncomfortable for you here." My heart thudded, but I held his gaze. "And what will that make you, Michael? A man who bullies his own mother in a nursing home? Do you think that's power?" His lips curled into a cruel smile. "Power is making people afraid. And right now, Mom, you should be afraid." Before I could respond, a nurse burst in. "Sir, you need to leave. Now." Michael straightened, his expression shifting into false innocence. "I was just saying goodbye," he said smoothly, brushing past her. But as he left, he shot me one last look, his eyes dark with unspoken promises. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the shadows twisting like ghosts. My mind replayed his words, the threat hanging over me like a noose. What could he do? What would he do? The next morning, the answer began to reveal itself. At breakfast, I noticed whispers around the dining hall. Residents stared at me, some with pity, others with suspicion. Finally, my friend Margaret leaned over. "Evelyn," she said gently, "is it true what your son said? That you're hiding money? That you've been lying to all of us?" I froze, my spoon halfway to my mouth. "What?" She sighed. "He was in the lobby last night after you went to bed. Told anyone who would listen that you're sitting on a fortune while pretending to be one of us. Some people are saying you don't belong here, that you're faking." My blood boiled. Michael wasn't just threatening me. He was poisoning the well, turning others against me. "I never said I was broke," I muttered. "But that money isn't his. And it certainly doesn't change who I am here." Still, the damage was done. For the first time since I arrived, I felt the weight of isolation creeping in. The smiles from staff seemed tighter. Conversations around me hushed when I walked by. Michael had planted seeds of doubt, and they were already sprouting. I realized then he wasn't going to stop. For days, his presence loomed even when he wasn't there. I would catch glimpses of him outside the building, leaning against his car, smoking, watching. Sometimes he came in, pretending to be the dutiful son visiting his mother, but his whispered threats told another story. "Sign over the accounts, Mom. Tell Sarah to hand it back. You don't know what you're starting." Each time I stood my ground. Each time my heart pounded harder. Then came the night that changed everything. It was nearly midnight, and most of the nursing home was quiet. I was reading by lamplight when I heard a faint noise at my door. At first, I thought it was a nurse checking in. But then, slowly, the doorknob turned. I froze. The door creaked open, and there he was, Michael. His silhouette filled the frame, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "Mom," he whispered, stepping inside. "We need to talk." Fear surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. "It's the middle of the night," I said firmly. "This isn't the time." He shut the door behind him. "It's the only time. You keep pushing me and I'm running out of patience." He stepped closer, looming over me. For the first time, I wondered if he might actually hurt me. My own son. And just as he reached for my arm, the hallway lights flicked on and a voice rang out. "Michael, what are you doing here?" It was Sarah. My heart nearly stopped. The moment Sarah's voice cut through the hallway, Michael stiffened. He looked like a thief caught with his hand halfway into the drawer. His grip loosened on my arm, and he turned toward the door with a sneer. "Perfect," he muttered. The saint herself. Sarah stepped into the room, her presence lighting the space like the morning sun after a storm. She hadn't changed much since the divorce. Her chestnut hair was tied back, her clothes simple but neat. But her eyes, that sharp, unwavering gaze, spoke of someone who had endured fire and come out stronger. "Michael," she said evenly, "it's almost midnight. Why are you here?" Michael smirked, trying to regain control. "Visiting my mother." "Is that a crime?" Sarah's brow arched. "Visiting doesn't usually involve sneaking in after hours and frightening a woman in her own room." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Always so dramatic. You haven't changed a bit." Her eyes narrowed. "Neither have you. Still trying to take what isn't yours." The words hit him like a slap. His jaw clenched, and for a second, I thought he might lash out. But then he shoved his hands in his pockets, pacing like a caged wolf. "Stay out of this, Sarah," he snapped. "This is between me and my mother." Sarah didn't flinch. She stepped closer, placing herself squarely between him and me. "No, Michael. This is about the choices you made. And it's about the consequences you're too much of a coward to face." For a moment, silence filled the room, thick as smoke. Then Michael let out a sharp laugh. "You two deserve each other," he spat. "Fine. Keep your little charity. Keep your games. But don't come crying to me when it all falls apart." With that, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I exhaled shakily, my hands trembling. Sarah turned to me immediately, her expression softening. Are you all right, Evelyn? I nodded, though my heart was still pounding. You saved me, I whispered. He was going to. You don't have to explain, she said gently. I know exactly what he's capable of. I reached for her hand, tears filling my eyes. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For everything he put you through. For not seeing it sooner. Her grip tightened reassuringly. Don't apologize. None of this is your fault. Michael made his choices. You don't owe him anything. Those words sank deep into me. Soothing wounds I didn't even realize were still bleeding. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of peace. The next few days passed quietly, though the storm still rumbled on the horizon. Sarah visited often, checking on me, bringing updates about the charity. The work she was doing was incredible, feeding families, helping women find jobs, even setting up a scholarship fund for young girls. Each story she shared filled me with pride. My money hadn't been wasted. It had been transformed into hope, into life. And though Michael's shadow loomed, I felt stronger knowing I wasn't alone. But Michael wasn't finished with me. Late one afternoon, as the nursing home prepared for visiting hours, the director called me into his office. He was a kind man, gray-haired, always polite. But today his expression was troubled. Evelyn, he began carefully, we've had some complaints. From residents and families. They say you've been dishonest about your situation, that you're wealthy and hiding it. Some are upset, saying you don't belong here. My stomach dropped. Michael's poison again. I never lied, I said firmly. I may have money, but that doesn't mean I deserve to be abandoned by my son. It doesn't mean I don't need a home. The director sighed. I believe you, but perception matters. If this continues, the board may decide it's best for you to relocate. Relocate. Thrown out of the only place where I had found peace. Anger surged through me, not at the director, but at Michael. He wasn't just trying to bleed me dry. He wanted to destroy me, to strip away every shred of stability I had left. That night, I sat with Sarah in the garden behind the nursing home, the twilight painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. I told her everything, the complaints, the threat of being forced out. She listened quietly, then took a deep breath. Then it's time we stop playing defense, Evelyn. It's time we fight back. I frowned. Fight back how? She met my eyes, determination blazing. Michael thinks he can bully and threaten his way into getting what he wants. But he's forgotten something. You're not powerless. And he has far more to lose than he realizes. Her words stirred something inside me. A spark. For too long, I had let Michael dictate the game. Maybe it was time to remind him who had taught him to play in the first place. But before we could plan anything, the storm broke. That very night, just after lights out, a scream echoed through the nursing home halls. Doors flew open, nurses ran, alarms blared. I hurried out with the others, my heart racing. And there, in the middle of the lobby, stood Michael, bloody, battered, and flanked by two men I didn't recognize. One of them grabbed him by the collar and shoved him to the floor. You've got 24 hours to pay up, the man growled, loud enough for everyone to hear. Or next time, we won't be so gentle. The men turned and left, leaving Michael groaning on the tiles as shocked residents and staff stared in horror. And in that moment, as I watched my son crumpled and broken, I realized the battle was only just beginning. The sight of Michael sprawled on the cold lobby floor was something I never thought I'd witness. My son, who had once strutted around like the world owed him everything, was now a broken heap of blood and shame under the fluorescent lights of a nursing home. The staff rushed to help him, gasps echoing through the hall. Some residents clutched their robes tighter, whispering. Others shook their heads with pity or disgust. I stood rooted to the spot, my emotions tangled in a storm. Should I feel sorrow? Relief? Satisfaction? A nurse knelt beside him, pressing a towel to his bleeding lip. We need to get him to the hospital, she said. Michael groaned, pushing her away weakly. No hospital. Please, no hospital. His voice was barely audible, but I heard it. Fear. My proud, arrogant son was terrified. And then I understood. If he went to the hospital, the men who had beaten him would know. They'd find him again. They might even find me. I felt my knees go weak, and Sarah steadied me. Evelyn, she whispered, don't get pulled into his mess. He made these choices. But as I looked at him, I couldn't stop the memories from flooding back. His first birthday, the way he once clung to my hand when he was scared of thunderstorms, the little boy who used to crawl into my bed at night, whispering, don't leave me, Mama. Now here he was, bloodied and desperate. And though part of me wanted to turn away, another part whispered, he's still your son. The director of the nursing home arrived, his face stern. This is unacceptable. Evelyn, we cannot allow this kind of danger inside our facility. If your son's problems follow him here, I'm afraid you'll both need to leave. My heart dropped. Leave? I had nowhere else to go. And Michael, well, Michael's only option was the streets. Sarah stepped forward quickly. Director, please. Evelyn has done nothing wrong. Punishing her for her son's mistakes isn't fair. The man hesitated, glancing at me. We'll discuss this in the morning, but for now he can't stay here. The staff carried Michael outside, setting him on a bench like discarded luggage. I watched from the window as he sat hunched over, clutching his ribs, alone in the night. That image haunted me as I lay in bed. I tossed and turned, my mind torn apart. Was this justice for the way he had treated me? Or was this cruelty? Me abandoning him the way he abandoned me? By dawn, I knew one thing for certain. Michael's enemies wouldn't stop. And if he stayed anywhere near me, neither would the danger. The next day, Sarah visited again. She brought coffee, and we sat in the garden while the morning sun painted the sky. She looked at me with concern. What will you do? She asked softly. I sipped my coffee, my hands trembling. Part of me wants to let him drown. He threw me away like trash, Sarah. He told me I was worthless. And yet, my voice cracked. Yet, he's still my son. I don't know how to stop caring. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Loving him doesn't mean enabling him. You can care without sacrificing yourself. Her words were wise, but my heart refused to settle. That evening, Michael returned. His face was bruised, his shirt torn, his pride shattered. He stood in the hallway, staring at me with hollow eyes. Mom, he croaked. Please, they'll kill me. I swallowed hard. Michael, what do you expect me to do? Pay them off, he begged. You have the money. I know you do. Just give me enough to make them go away. The audacity of it made my blood boil. He had lost everything, and still his first instinct was to beg for more. Not to apologize, not to change, just to use me again. I shook my head. No, Michael, I won't feed the wolves. You made this mess, and you need to find your own way out. His face twisted, half in pain, half in fury. You don't get it, Mom. If I die, it'll be your fault. You could save me, and you're choosing not to. I stood firm, though my heart ached. No, Michael. This is the result of your choices, not mine. He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment, his eyes burning with something between hatred and despair. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out. I thought that was the end of it. I thought maybe he'd vanish, forced to confront his own failures. But that night, the storm returned. It was after midnight when I awoke to the sound of glass shattering. My heart leapt into my throat. I sat up, straining to listen. Then came the heavy footsteps, the shouting, and before I could move, before I could even call for help, my door burst open. It wasn't Michael this time. It was two men, rough, hulking figures with cruel eyes. And one of them growled, "Where's your son, lady?" The two men towered in the doorway, their shadows stretching across my small nursing home room like the hands of death itself. My breath caught in my throat. I had feared Michael's threats, but this was something far darker. "Where's your son, lady?" the taller one demanded, his voice gravelly. His eyes scanned the room, sharp and hungry. My heart pounded, so hard I thought it might burst. He doesn't live here," I stammered, clutching the blanket to my chest. The shorter man sneered, stepping closer. "Don't play dumb. He owes us. Big. And if he won't pay, maybe his sweet old mama will." I froze. The room tilted, my fear colliding with fury. My son had dragged me into his chaos, and now strangers were standing in my home, my sanctuary, threatening me. Before I could respond, the taller man grabbed my wrist, his grip rough and unforgiving. Tell us where he is, or things get ugly. Panic surged through me, but so did something else, a spark of defiance. I looked him dead in the eye, forcing my voice to steady. If you think you'll get anything from me, you're wasting your time. I have nothing for you. He tightened his grip, and I winced in pain. We'll see about that. And then, just as my fear threatened to swallow me whole, the door burst open again. Let her go. It was Sarah, her voice sharp and unwavering. She stood in the hallway, two nurses behind her, one already dialing 911. The men exchanged a glance. For a moment, I thought they might fight. But then the taller one shoved me backward, and I stumbled onto the bed. This isn't over, he snarled. Tell your son he's got 24 hours. After that, we collect. With that, they bolted out of the room, past the stunned nurses, and into the night. I sat trembling, my wrist aching where he had grabbed me. Sarah rushed to my side, wrapping her arms around me. Evelyn, are you okay? Tears burned my eyes, but I nodded. I'm fine. I'm fine. But inside, I wasn't fine. I was broken, terrified, and angrier than I had ever been in my life. The police came quickly, taking statements from everyone. They promised to increase patrols around the nursing home, but their words felt hollow. Michael's death had become my danger, and unless something changed, those men would be back. The director called me into his office again the next morning. His face was pale, his hands clasped tightly. Evelyn, he said gravely, I'm so sorry, but this facility cannot handle this kind of threat. Our priority has to be the safety of all residents. If your son's troubles follow him here. I knew what was coming before he said it. You'll need to relocate, he finished softly. We'll give you some time, but you can't stay. The words hit me like a blow. Relocate. Again. Cast out because of Michael. Sarah was furious. This is unfair, she argued. She's the victim here. But the director only shook his head. I wish it were different. Truly, I do. That night, I sat by my window, staring at the stars. My heart felt heavy, torn between love and rage. How had my son brought me here? To this point where I was losing everything because of him. And then, as if summoned by my thoughts, he appeared. I saw him outside, standing in the parking lot, his face gaunt and desperate. He looked up at my window, his eyes searching for mine. For a moment, our gazes locked. And then he shouted, his voice carrying into the night. Help me, Mom. Please. They're going to kill me. Residents stirred. Lights flicked on. The night erupted with confusion. And I stood frozen, torn apart inside, as my son collapsed to his knees under the streetlight, sobbing. Michael knelt in the nursing home parking lot, his cries echoing into the night. The streetlight above him flickered, throwing shadows across his tear-streaked face. He looked nothing like the proud, arrogant son who had once sneered at me and called me worthless. No, this man was broken, trembling, and utterly desperate. Please, Mom, he begged, his voice raw. They're going to kill me. You don't understand. The nurses tried to usher residents back inside, but whispers spread like wildfire. Some pressed their faces to the windows, watching the drama unfold. I stood frozen at mine, heart pounding. Every instinct screamed for me to look away, to let him face the consequences of his choices. And yet, he was still my son. Sarah rushed into my room, her face pale. Don't go out there, she warned. It's a trap. He'll drag you back into his mess. But I couldn't ignore him. My legs carried me down the hall, down the stairs, and out into the humid night air of Kentucky. Michael, I said firmly, standing a few feet away from him. Get up. You're making a scene. He lifted his head, eyes bloodshot. I've lost everything, Mom. The house, the car, the money all gone. They're after me, and I don't know what to do. I felt anger rise inside me like a wave. After everything you did to me, now you come crawling back? You abandoned me, I said coldly. You dumped me here like trash, and now you think I'll save you. He flinched, shame flickering across his face. I was wrong, okay? I was stupid. Please, you're the only one I have left. The words twisted in my chest. For a moment, I almost believed him. But then I remembered the bruises on my wrist, the eviction from yet another home, the way he had laughed at me when he signed me away to strangers. "You made your bed, Michael," I whispered. "Now lie in it." The crowd gasped. My voice had been cold, final. Michael stared at me as if I had struck him. "Mom," his voice cracked. "You don't mean that." But I did. I turned and walked back toward the doors, Sarah at my side, the nurses ushering me in. My son's cries followed me, haunting, desperate. For the first time, I didn't look back. Inside, my body trembled from the weight of it all. Sarah squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing. He has to face his demons." I nodded, but my heart ached. Being a mother meant loving even when it hurt. And tonight it hurt like hell. The next morning, the police returned. They had questions about the men who had stormed my room. They wanted details, names, anything I could remember. But then one of the officers leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Ma'am, we need to warn you. Those men aren't just small-time thugs. They're connected to something much bigger. And if your son really owes them what we think he does," he hesitated, glancing at Sarah, "you may be in more danger than you realize." Danger. Again. Always danger when it came to Michael. I thought that was the worst of it, until later that afternoon when the mail arrived. Among the bills and letters was an envelope with no return address. My name was scrawled on the front in shaky handwriting. I opened it slowly, my fingers trembling. Inside was a single photograph. It was of Michael. He was tied to a chair, his face bloodied, his eyes wide with terror. And beneath it, a note written in block letters. $500, 000, or he dies. The photograph shook in my trembling hands. Michael's face was swollen, one eye nearly shut, a thin line of blood running from his lip. He was tied to a chair in some dimly lit room, shadows curling around him like claws. My stomach dropped. The note beneath the photo was simple, merciless. $500, 000, or he dies. 72 hours. My knees buckled. Sarah caught me before I hit the floor, guiding me to the bed. "Evelyn, what is it?" Wordlessly, I handed her the picture. She gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my God." Tears burned my eyes. "They're going to kill him, Sarah. They'll really do it." Sarah's face hardened. "And where do they think you'll get $500,000? You don't owe him your life savings, Evelyn. He put himself here." Her words were sharp but true. I had no such money, not anymore. What Michael didn't know, what no one knew, was that his so-called inheritance was long gone. I had already redirected it, carefully, deliberately, to Sarah's charity. I thought it would be a final act of kindness, one good thing left behind in my name. And now, that decision had become a death sentence. I sat in silence, clutching the photo, my mind spinning. The men thought I could pay. Michael thought I could pay. But I couldn't. Not anymore. The police returned later that day. I showed them the letter, my hands still shaking. The officer's jaw tightened. "This is serious, ma'am. We'll do everything we can. But you need to prepare yourself. People like this don't bluff." Prepare myself. For what? The death of my only son? The final unraveling of what little family I had left? That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Memories of Michael as a boy flooded back. His laugh, his sticky fingers from too many popsicles, the way he once clung to me during thunderstorms. Somewhere along the line, that boy had grown into a man I no longer recognized. And yet, when I looked at the photograph, all I could see was my child in pain. By the second day, whispers spread through the nursing home. Some residents gave me sympathetic looks. Others avoided me entirely. Trouble seemed to follow me like a curse. Sarah tried to distract me, bringing books, tea, even a deck of cards. But nothing could quiet the storm inside. On the morning of the third day, just hours before the deadline, another envelope arrived. My hand shook as I tore it open. Inside was no photo this time, only a scrap of cloth, blood-stained, and scrawled beneath it 5 chilling words. "Last chance. Time is up." My scream echoed through the halls. The cloth slipped from my hands and landed on the floor like a fallen flag. Its dark stain spread across the carpet, searing itself into my mind. I stared at it as though the longer I looked, the more sense it might make. But there was no sense in this, no explanation that could soften the truth. They were showing me proof. Proof that Michael's time was running out. I had less than 12 hours. Sarah crouched beside me, her eyes darting between my face and the cloth. Evelyn, what are you going to do? I pressed both hands to my head, shaking it slowly. I can't save him, Sarah. I don't have what they want. You mean the money? She asked softly. Yes, I whispered. $500,000. Her brow furrowed. But Michael was always bragging about the inheritance. Didn't he say he had it locked away, that it would come through you when she trailed off, realizing? I turned my gaze toward the window, unable to meet hers. It's gone. All of it. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Finally, Sarah placed her hand over mine. Gone where? I swallowed hard. The secret I had carried for years pressed against my lips like a weight. I hadn't planned on telling anyone, not yet, maybe not ever. But the truth clawed its way out. I gave it away, I said. My voice cracked, but once the words left me, I couldn't stop. Every cent quietly, carefully. I donated it all to your charity. Sarah's hand froze on mine. Her lips parted, but no words came. I went on, my chest heaving. It was the only good I could do with it. I couldn't trust Michael with that kind of money. I saw the way he gambled, the way he lived recklessly. It would have been gone in a year, maybe less. But with your foundation, children get food. Families get shelter. It meant something. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, though whether from gratitude or guilt, I couldn't tell. Evelyn, you didn't have to. I did, I interrupted. It was my last power, my last choice. And I don't regret it. Not one bit. But as I spoke those words, a terrible truth cut through me. I might not regret giving the money away, but it had consequences. Consequences I had never imagined. Because of my decision, Michael's captors believed I could pay. And when I didn't, they would kill him. The weight of that hit me like a stone. I clutched the edge of the bed, breathing hard. Sarah squeezed my hand again. You did the right thing. Don't second-guess yourself now. Michael made his bed. He chose this path. But he's still my son, I whispered. My blood. Her voice softened. And you are more than just his mother. You are a woman who deserves peace. He abandoned you, Evelyn. He sold your dignity for convenience. Don't let him drag you down further. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But the image of Michael tied to that chair burned into my mind, haunting me with every blink. The hours ticked by in suffocating silence. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every creak of the building made me flinch, as if the men might burst in again. By evening, the police returned. Officer Daniels, the taller one with kind eyes, sat across from me. Mrs. Harper, I need you to be honest with me. Do you have the money they're asking for? I hesitated, my throat dry. Finally, I shook my head. No, I don't. He studied me carefully, his eyes narrowing. Not even close? I clenched my fists in my lap. Not even close. Daniels sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. That makes things harder. These people don't bluff. If they set a deadline, they'll enforce it. We're doing everything we can to trace them, but it's like chasing shadows. Sarah leaned forward, her tone sharp. So you're telling us there's nothing you can do? Daniels looked at her, then back at me. I'm saying we'll try, but you need to prepare yourself. It may not end the way you want. When he left, I felt hollow, like a candle burned down to its wick. The night pressed against the window, thick and endless. I couldn't stay still. I paced the small room, wringing my hands until Sarah begged me to rest. Finally, I sank into the chair by the window, the photograph clutched in my hands. I whispered to the darkness, though I knew Michael couldn't hear me. I don't have it, son. I can't save you. Not this time. The clock struck midnight. I counted the seconds, each one louder than the last, until the sound of my own heartbeat filled the room. And then, just as the silence grew unbearable, the phone rang. The shrill sound tore through the stillness, freezing me in place. Sarah's eyes widened. We both knew who it was before I picked up. With trembling hands, I lifted the receiver. A deep voice snarled on the other end. Time's up. You had your chance. The line went dead. The receiver slipped from my fingers. My body shook violently. Sarah's voice distant in my ears. Evelyn, what did they say? But I couldn't answer. All I could see was Michael's broken face, the rope biting into his wrists, the clock ticking down to his final breath. And for the first time in my life, I wondered, had my act of kindness condemned my own son to death? The phone slid from my hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. My ears still rang with that voice, cold, merciless, final. Time's up. You had your chance. I sat frozen, staring at the receiver, as if maybe if I picked it up again, the voice would return, and I could beg. But the line was dead. Sarah grabbed my shoulders, shaking me gently. Evelyn, talk to me. What did they say? I could barely force the words out. They said time's up. Her eyes widened, horror washing across her face. She pulled me into her arms, and for a long moment, I just let the sobs come, my body shaking like a child's. Maybe it's just another scare tactic, Sarah whispered, though I could hear the doubt in her voice. They want to break you. That's all. But deep inside, I wasn't sure. When morning came, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me in the mirror. My hair was tangled, my eyes hollow, my skin pale as ash. The weight of the night pressed on me, making every breath feel heavy. I shuffled to the dining hall, ignoring the stares of the other residents. Whispers followed me like a shadow. That's the woman with the sun. The trouble magnet. Did you hear about the ransom? I sat at a corner table, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate without eating. Sarah sat beside me, protective as ever, glaring at anyone who dared look too long. By mid-morning, Officer Daniels returned. The look on his face told me everything before he even spoke. We tracked the call, he said, pulling up a chair across from me. It came from an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. We sent a unit. By the time they got there, he stopped, jaw tightening. My heart thudded painfully. By the time they got there, what? His eyes softened, almost pitying. The place was empty. They'd cleared out. But we found signs of struggle. My stomach knotted. Michael. Daniels hesitated. We can't confirm. There was no body, but there were bloodstains. A lot of them. The room spun. Sarah reached for my hand, grounding me. No body means he might still be alive, she said firmly, as though trying to will it into truth. Daniels nodded. That's possible. These people like leverage. If they didn't get what they wanted, they might keep him alive. But ma'am, he leaned closer, his voice low. If he's alive, the clock is ticking. And if you know anything that could help us, now is the time. His words pierced me. I opened my mouth, wanting to confess everything. That the inheritance they thought I had was gone, that I had given it away, that Michael's life might already be forfeit because of me. But fear clamped down on my throat. What if telling them made it worse? What if it made Sarah's charity a target too? So instead, I shook my head. I don't know anything more. Daniel studied me for a long moment, then finally stood. We'll keep searching. But don't leave this facility without telling us. You could be a target yourself. When he left, Sarah turned to me, her expression unreadable. You should have told him, Evelyn. Tears pricked my eyes. And put your charity at risk? Put you at risk? No, I won't do that. She sighed, gripping my hand tightly. You can't carry this alone. Not anymore. The day dragged by like molasses. Every tick of the clock echoed in my bones. I tried to read, tried to nap, tried to do anything but think. But the image of Michael tied to that chair haunted me. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped outside, ignoring the nurse who called after me. The air was heavy with the scent of rain, the sky a bruised gray. I walked to the edge of the parking lot, staring down the road that led into town. Somewhere out there, my son might still be alive. Somewhere out there, he might be waiting for me to save him. And yet hadn't he abandoned me? Left me to rot in a nursing home? Declaring I was broke and worthless? The war inside me raged until my knees nearly buckled. That night I dreamt of him. Not the man he had become, but the boy he once was, running barefoot through the grass, laughter spilling from his lips, calling for me to chase him. I woke with tears on my cheeks and the bitter taste of regret on my tongue. The next day passed in a blur. No calls, no letters, no news. The silence was worse than any threat. Until dusk. I was sitting by the window when I saw it. A car, idling at the far edge of the parking lot. The engine hummed low, its headlights off. My pulse quickened. Sarah, I whispered, pointing. She joined me at the window, her face tightening. That's not normal. The car door opened. A man stepped out, his face hidden beneath a baseball cap. He glanced around before lifting a small envelope from his jacket and placing it on the ground. Then, without a word, he returned to the car and drove off into the night. My legs shook as Sarah and I hurried outside. The envelope was damp with evening dew. My name was scrawled across the front. I tore it open with trembling hands. Inside was another photograph. Michael again. This time he was on his knees, a gun pressed to the side of his head. His eyes were wild, pleading, filled with terror. Beneath the photo, in the same block letters as before, were 5 words that made my blood run cold. Your charity or his life. The words on the note blurred as tears welled in my eyes. Your charity or his life. I clutched the paper, so tightly it crumpled in my hands. My heart pounded against my ribs like a caged animal trying to escape. For days, I had been living in fear, waiting for the worst. Now it had come, spelled out in black ink. Sarah leaned over my shoulder, her breath hitching when she read the message. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her hand flew to her mouth, then dropped, curling into a fist. They know. Somehow they know. Her eyes darted to mine. "Evelyn, you told me no one knew. How could they know?" I shook my head, trembling. I don't know. I never told a soul. Not even Michael. The truth hung between us like smoke. The inheritance wasn't just gone. It had been carefully redirected. Every cent funneled into Sarah's foundation. Food for hungry children, roofs over broken families, hope for people who had nothing left. That money had given life, and now it was being used as a weapon. Sarah grabbed my shoulders, her eyes fierce. "We can't give in to this. If we hand over the charity, everything we built will crumble. The kids, the families, they'll lose everything." Her voice cracked, but there was steel beneath it. "And Evelyn, you'd lose the very thing that gave your sacrifice meaning." I staggered back, pressing a hand to the wall for support. "But if we don't, Michael..." Her jaw tightened. "Michael abandoned you. He threw you away like trash. And now, because of his gambling, his lies, you're being forced into an impossible choice. You don't owe him your soul." Her words sliced me open, because deep down I knew they were true. But motherhood is a strange thing. It binds you in ways logic can't touch. No matter how much he had hurt me, Michael was still my son. My only son. And the thought of his life being snuffed out because of me twisted something deep inside my chest. I sank into the chair by the window, the photo of Michael trembling in my hands. His eyes stared back at me, wild, terrified, pleading. I could almost hear his voice, the same voice that once begged me for another bedtime story, another cookie, another chance. "I can't let them kill him," I whispered. Sarah knelt in front of me, gripping my knees. "And what about the children who will go hungry? The families who will lose their homes if we hand everything over? Evelyn, if you give in to this, you don't just lose him. You lose everything good you've created." The words struck me like lightning. I sat there, torn in two, the weight of both worlds pressing down on me. My son's life, or hundreds of strangers. My blood, or my legacy. The hours crept by, each second stretching like a blade against my skin. I couldn't eat, couldn't rest. The photo lay on the table, a silent reminder of the choice that awaited me. That evening, Officer Daniels returned. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes sharpened when Sarah showed him the envelope. "Damn it," he muttered, slamming a fist against the table. "They've figured out the money trail." I froze. "What do you mean?" Daniels sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We've been digging. Whoever's behind this, they've got resources, connections. They're not just petty criminals. They're watching you, Mrs. Harper. They know more than they should, and now they're leveraging it." Sarah folded her arms tightly. "So what do we do?" Daniels leaned forward, his voice low. "We buy time. We stall them, and we set a trap." My pulse quickened. "A trap?" He nodded. "If they want the charity, they'll come for it. We use that to lure them out. But you'll have to play along. You'll have to make them believe you're willing to hand everything over." My stomach knotted. The idea of playing their game, of pretending to betray Sarah's charity, made bile rise in my throat. But the alternative, the sound of a gunshot echoing in some dark room while my son's life ended, was unbearable. "I'll do it," I whispered. Sarah's eyes snapped to mine. "Evelyn, no. This is too dangerous. They'll kill you the moment they suspect." I looked at her, tears brimming. "And if I don't, they'll kill Michael." The room fell silent. Finally, Sarah stood, pacing the small space like a caged lion. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but fine. If we do this, we do it carefully. On our terms." Daniels nodded. "Agreed. I'll assemble a team. But understand this, we may not be able to save him. These people play dirty. If it comes down to your safety or his, we'll choose yours." The words cut deep, but I nodded. "I understand." For the first time in days, I felt a sliver of purpose. A plan, however fragile, had taken shape. That night, I sat by the window again, staring at the stars. My chest ached with the weight of the decision. Could I really betray Sarah's charity, even as a ruse? Could I really risk everything, just to save a son who had cast me aside? Sleep finally took me in the early hours, restless and broken. I woke to a sound that froze my blood. A voice, coming from the hallway outside my room. Low, rough, unmistakable. "She's in there. Finish it." The door handle began to turn. The handle turned slowly, creaking in the silence of my room. My breath caught in my throat. I sat frozen, the blankets pulled to my chest, my heart thudding so loudly I was certain whoever was on the other side could hear it. Sarah stirred on the chair beside me. She had fallen asleep, keeping watch, but now her eyes snapped open. One glance at the door was enough. She shot to her feet, putting herself between me and the entrance. The door swung open. Two men stepped inside, their faces obscured by black masks. One was broad-shouldered, holding a gun low at his side. The other carried a knife, twirling it lazily between his fingers. "Stay quiet," the taller one hissed, his voice the same gravel I'd heard the night they first stormed my room. "This won't take long." Sarah squared her shoulders, defiant. "You're not touching her." The knife wielder chuckled. "Cute. But this isn't about you, sweetheart. Step aside." My entire body trembled. "Please," I whispered, my voice cracking. "You don't have to do this. I don't have what you want." The man with the gun leveled his gaze at me. "We know what you did with the money. The charity. You think you're clever, but you're not. You'll hand it over, or your boy's brains will be splattered across the floor by sunrise." Sarah's fists clenched. "And if she doesn't?" The man's lip curled beneath the mask. "Then we start with her. Make it slow. Make him watch." Cold dread washed through me. My stomach churned. For a moment, I thought my legs might give out completely. Then, "Police, drop your weapons." The hallway erupted with shouts. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Officers stormed into the room, guns drawn. The two men spun, startled, their weapons twitching. The broad-shouldered one cursed and fired a shot into the ceiling. The deafening crack sent residents screaming down the hall. Sarah ducked low, dragging me behind the bed. "Don't move," an officer barked. "Hands where we can see them." The knife clattered to the floor. The man holding it raised his hands slowly, eyes wide with panic. But the one with the gun wasn't finished. He shoved past the officers, knocking one aside, and bolted down the hall. "Go! Go!" Daniel's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Half the unit tore after the fleeing man, their footsteps pounding like thunder. In the chaos, Sarah wrapped her arms around me, her voice shaking. "It's okay, Evelyn. It's okay. They're here. You're safe." But I wasn't safe. Not truly. Not while Michael was still out there. Not while these men knew about the money. The officers hauled the knife wielder to his feet, handcuffing him as he cursed and spat. Daniels crouched in front of me, his face etched with concern. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, my body trembling too much to form words. "You did good," he said softly. "We've got one of them. That's a start." But I could see the truth in his eyes. Catching one was not enough. The other was still out there, armed, desperate, and dangerous. The nursing home was thrown into chaos. Residents were herded into the common room, trembling and whispering. Staff scrambled to calm them, their faces pale with fear. I sat in silence, clutching Sarah's hand. My thoughts spun like a storm. They knew everything. They knew about the inheritance, about the charity, about me, which meant only one thing. Someone close had betrayed me. That realization hit like a blade to the gut. Who could it be? A staff member? A resident? Someone who had overheard me talking with Sarah? Or Michael himself? No. I shook the thought away as soon as it came. He couldn't have known. He hadn't known. Unless he'd found out somehow in his desperation. Unless he had told them himself, hoping they'd pressure me into saving him. The idea sickened me. By dawn, the facility was under lockdown. Police tape stretched across the hallway. Officers posted at every door. Daniels pulled me aside, his voice grim. They're not going to stop, Mrs. Harper. Not until they get what they want. That means you're still a target. And so is the charity. Sarah crossed her arms. So what do we do? Daniels hesitated, then sighed. We set the trap. Tonight. We leak word that the transfer is happening. We make them come to us. And when they do, we end this. I felt the weight of it settle over me. Tonight. One way or another, it would be decided. I returned to my room, but rest was impossible. My hand shook as I packed a small bag, some clothes, the photograph of Michael, a rosary I hadn't touched in years. Sarah tried to distract me, telling stories, playing cards, but my mind was elsewhere. All I could think of was Michael. Was he alive? Was he suffering? Did he know what they were demanding? Night fell like a curtain. The storm outside grew fierce, rain pelting the windows, thunder rattling the glass. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Around midnight, the officers moved me and Sarah into a secured van. We drove through the rain, the wipers slapping furiously, until we reached the abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. It was the same place Daniels had mentioned before, the place where they'd found the blood. My stomach twisted as I stepped inside, the damp air thick with the smell of rust and mildew. The officers set up their equipment quickly, hidden cameras, comms, rifles trained on every possible entrance. Daniel stayed close, his hand never far from his weapon. This is it, he said. Once the word gets out, they'll come. Be ready. I nodded, though my legs felt like water. Hours passed in tense silence. Every creak, every drip of rain made me jump. Sarah sat beside me, her hand gripping mine so tightly it hurt. And then footsteps, heavy, deliberate, echoing through the empty space. The officers raised their weapons. Daniel signaled for silence. From the shadows, a figure emerged, broad-shouldered, a mask pulled over his face. The gunman. But he wasn't alone. Dragged behind him, bound and gagged, was Michael. My son's face was battered, his eyes hollow, his body barely able to stand, and the barrel of a gun pressed firmly against his temple. The sight of Michael nearly shattered me. His face was pale and swollen, one eye dark with bruises. His shirt was torn, his wrists bound so tightly with rope that I could see angry red welts around them. His legs barely carried him, and each step he took was forced by the gunman's shove against his temple. My son, my only son, looked like a broken man. Mom, he tried to mumble, but the gag muffled his voice into a desperate whimper. His eyes, though, said everything. Fear, regret, pleading. The gunman stopped in the middle of the warehouse, his chest heaving, his weapon pressed firmly against Michael's skull. Rain beat against the roof above us, a steady drum that matched the wild rhythm of my heart. Drop your weapons, he barked at the officers. All of you, or the boy dies right here. Daniels raised his hand slowly, signaling his team to hold. Their rifles didn't waver, but I could see the tension in their jaws, the sweat on their brows. No one needs to die tonight, Daniels said evenly. Let him go. You've got nowhere to run. The man laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Nowhere to run? You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know you've got this place surrounded? His eyes darted wildly across the room, sweat glistening on his forehead. I've got the only bargaining chip that matters. He shoved Michael forward, making him stumble to his knees. My son groaned, his eyes meeting mine again. Mom, he tried again, the gag muffling the sound. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to run to him, to throw myself between him and that gun. But I couldn't. One wrong move, and he'd be dead before I even reached him. The gunman's gaze locked on me. This is simple, old lady. You make the call. You shut down the charity. You hand over every cent you stole. You do that, and your boy walks out of here alive. You don't, and you watch him die. The words hit me like a hammer. I staggered back, my knees trembling. Sarah caught me by the arm, steadying me. Don't listen to him, she whispered fiercely. He's bluffing. He'll kill Michael either way if we give in. But her words did nothing to ease the torment tearing me apart. My son's life, or the charity. Michael looked at me, his eyes wide, begging. For the first time since he'd abandoned me, I saw him as the little boy he once was, the one who used to run into my arms after scraping his knee, who used to cry out for me in the middle of the night when thunder scared him. How could I choose? Daniel stepped forward cautiously, his voice calm. You don't have to do this. We can work something out. Just let the boy go. Shut up, the man roared, pressing the gun harder against Michael's head. This is between me and her. His eyes burned into me. Well, what's it going to be, Grandma? Your son's life, or the lives of 1,000 strangers? The warehouse fell silent. The only sounds were the rain, the hum of distant radios, and Michael's muffled cries. I felt Sarah's hand squeeze mine. She shook her head slightly, her lips forming the word, don't. But then Michael made a sound. A desperate, broken sound that ripped through me like glass. He struggled against his ropes, his gag muffling a scream. Tears streamed down his bruised face. Mom, it was only a muffled cry, but I heard it. I felt it. And suddenly I broke. Stop, I cried, my voice cracking. I stepped forward, my hands raised. Please don't hurt him. I'll do it. I'll shut everything down. Just let him go. Sarah gasped, spinning toward me. Evelyn, no. You can't. I can, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. I have to. The gunman's lips curled into a grin beneath his mask. Smart woman. Now you're starting to understand. He motioned toward the table in the center of the warehouse. Phone. Computer. Make the call. Transfer everything. Right now. Daniel's tensed. Don't, Evelyn. If you do this, you give them exactly what they want. You'll lose everything you built. But I was already walking forward, each step heavy as lead. My son's life dangled by a thread, and I couldn't bear the thought of it snapping. I reached the table, where an officer had placed a laptop earlier for surveillance. My hand shook as I touched the keyboard. The charity's account blinked on the screen, waiting. Behind me, I could hear Sarah's sharp breaths, the scrape of her shoes against the concrete as she struggled not to rush forward. Do it, the gunman snarled. My fingers hovered over the keys. My chest heaved. And then, Michael's muffled voice cut through the storm again. Mom, don't. It was faint but clear. His eyes burned into mine, not with fear, but with something else. Shame, regret, love. For the first time in years, he looked at me not as a burden, not as a bank account, but as his mother. I froze. My heart split in two. The gunman snarled. What are you waiting for? Do it. Daniel's voice rang out sharp. Evelyn, listen to me. Stall him. Give us time. But the man must have sensed it. My hesitation, the shift in the room. His grip on Michael tightened. His eyes darted wildly. You think you can play me, he roared. You think I won't do it? He pressed the gun harder. And then, bang. The shot echoed like thunder through the warehouse. Michael screamed, and his body collapsed to the floor. The echo of the gunshot still rattled in my ears when I saw him fall. Michael hit the floor with a heavy thud, his body curling unnaturally. I ran forward, my legs trembling like thin reeds in the wind. Sarah grabbed my arm, but I wrenched free. Michael, I screamed, dropping to my knees beside him. His eyes were closed, his chest barely rising. Blood streaked his face, soaking the collar of his shirt. The gunman hissed, stepping back, clearly shocked by my sudden movement. I warned you, he spat, raising his weapon again. Daniels dove forward from his position behind a stack of crates, tackling the man to the ground. The gun skidded across the concrete, spinning out of reach. Officers swarmed, restraining the assailant. I pressed my hands against Michael's chest, willing him to breathe. I whispered his name over and over, my tears soaking his bruised face. Mom, he groaned, a sound so faint I nearly missed it. His eyelids fluttered open. A sob escaped me. You're alive. You're alive. Sarah crouched beside me, helping to unfasten the ropes that bound him. We've got you. It's okay. You're safe now. I shook my head, still holding him close. You have no idea what I've gone through for you. He tried to speak, but his lips quivered. I know, Mom. I was wrong. I swallowed hard, the tears streaming down my face. Wrong? Michael, you abandoned me. You left me in a nursing home, saying I was worthless. Do you know how that feels? His gaze dropped to the floor. I was stupid. I didn't realize until it was too late. Please, I'm so sorry. The officers had the gunman cuffed and were leading him out. I didn't notice them. I didn't hear them. I just held my son, my only son, and let the flood of emotions take me. Sarah whispered softly beside me, You saved him. You got him back. I shook my head. No, it wasn't me alone. Daniels and his team, they risked everything. Michael coughed weakly, his eyes still glazed but beginning to focus. Mom, the inheritance, the charity. I know. My hands froze on his shoulders. You know. He nodded, swallowing. I saw some of the transfers before everything went wrong. I don't deserve you. I cupped his face gently. None of that matters now. You're alive. That's what matters. But the gunman wasn't the only threat. Daniels gathered us together, urgency in his tone. We're not out of danger yet. He had accomplices, other people behind this. They'll be coming for revenge, especially if they find out we've got him safe. I nodded, the reality sinking in. Even though Michael survived, the storm wasn't over. The night dragged on, officers patrolling, checking every corner. Michael lay in my lap, exhausted but breathing steadily. Sarah wrapped a blanket around him and me, keeping us warm and safe. Mom, Michael whispered, his voice weak but steady. I don't know how to fix things. I hurt you. I left you. And now, I almost lost everything because of me. I stroked his hair. Michael, you can start by being honest. Start by respecting others, and maybe one day, you can make amends. But right now, just survive. That's all that matters. Hours passed in silence. The warehouse was quiet, save for the distant hum of rain on the metal roof. The officers remained vigilant, but for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt the smallest flicker of relief. But then, a loud crash echoed from the far side of the warehouse. My heart jumped into my throat. Daniels barked orders. Everyone down. Positions. From the shadows, a new figure emerged. A woman, masked, holding a gun in one hand and a laptop in the other. Her stance was aggressive, practiced. Thought you could get away with it, she hissed. Michael groaned, shifting slightly. Mom, it's... The officers froze. I grabbed Sarah's hand, fear pulsing through me. What now? I whispered. The woman's gaze locked on me. You don't know the half of it, Grandma. You think you've won, but this isn't over. You just bought yourself time. He belongs to me now. My stomach dropped. The nightmare was far from over. And in that moment, as Michael's life hung in the balance again, I realized the final battle was still ahead. The masked woman stepped forward, her gun trained on Michael. The warehouse was a storm of tension. Officers frozen, weapons raised, every heartbeat echoing like a drum. Who are you? I demanded, my voice trembling but loud. What do you want? She smirked beneath her mask. I'm the one he left behind. I'm the one who's owed. He thought he could cheat me, cheat the world, and get away with it. But I've been waiting, watching. And now I get what's mine. Michael's eyes widened. Mom, don't. I shouted, spinning toward him. Stay down. The woman raised the laptop in her free hand. You gave away his inheritance, Grandma. Every cent. My charity, my foundation, my work destroyed. You thought you were clever. You thought you were kind. But now we settle this. A sick realization hit me. She knew. Somehow word had leaked. My secret, the one act of goodness I had done, donating every dollar of Michael's inheritance to Sarah's charity, had become a weapon against us. I swallowed hard, the weight of years pressing down on me. You don't understand, I said. I didn't steal it. I didn't want it for myself. I I gave it away so it could help people who needed it. Families, children, people who had nothing. She laughed, cold and sharp. And what about him? Your precious son. Does he get to live because of your goodness? He could have died in that warehouse while you played philanthropist. I stepped closer, my voice stronger than I felt. And yet he's alive. He survived because I fought for him. And I'll fight for him again if I have to. But you're wrong. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. Her eyes narrowed. Justice? You abandoned him. You abandoned everyone who trusted you. And now you want to lecture me. Michael struggled against his bonds, weak but determined. Mom, tell her the truth. I looked at him, my heart clenching. Could I do it? Could I reveal the secret that had cost him so much without shattering everything I had built? Yes, I whispered. She needs to know the truth. Turning to the masked woman, I said clearly, Michael's inheritance, it's gone. Every cent. And it wasn't spent on selfishness. It was given to people who needed it more than he did. That's why I never told him. And now you see why. It was never about money. It was about what's right. For a long moment, the woman froze, her gun shaking slightly in her hand. Then she laughed bitterly. You think that excuses anything? Yes, I said firmly. It excuses nothing, but it explains why you'll never get what you want. Her expression twisted with fury. You'll pay for this, she hissed, raising her weapon higher. Daniels and the officers reacted instantly, shouting commands and moving to subdue her. In the chaos, Sarah lunged forward, pressing the gunman to the ground as officers restrained her. Michael scrambled to his feet, still shaky, but staring at me with a mixture of awe and relief. Mom, you saved me again. You saved everything. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. No, you survived because we never gave up. Not you, not me, not the people who believed in something better. That's what matters. The masked woman struggled, shouting, but the officers overpowered her quickly. Daniels turned to me, his voice low. She won't be a threat anymore. You and your son are safe. I sank to the floor, pulling Michael into my arms. He buried his face in my chest, sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mom. I was worthless. I was selfish. I left you. I whispered, holding him tightly. I know, but it's over now. You're alive. That's all that matters. Sarah joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. And the charity, she asked. I smiled faintly, exhaustion weighing on every part of me. It's still standing. The people it helps, they'll keep it alive. That money did its job. It gave life where it was needed most. And it will continue to do so. Michael pulled back slightly, looking me in the eyes. Mom, you did all this for me, and for everyone else. I don't deserve you. You do now, I said softly. You do now because you're here. You're alive, and you're learning. That's what matters. Outside the warehouse, the storm had cleared. Dawn's light filtered through the broken windows, casting a pale glow over the scene. I felt something I hadn't in years, relief, but also a quiet strength. I had survived betrayal, heartbreak, and terror. I had faced impossible choices and made them with courage. And I had proven that kindness, even in the face of cruelty, could outlast fear. Michael squeezed my hand. Mom, I'll make it right. I'll fix things. I'll try to be worthy of you. I kissed his forehead, a gentle, final act of forgiveness. You already are, Michael. Just survive. Learn from this. That's all I ask. As the officers escorted the last of the criminals away, I glanced at Sarah. Thank you. For everything. For helping me do the right thing. She smiled softly. You don't need thanks. You did the hard part. You faced them. You chose life. And now you have your son back. That's enough. I nodded, looking at Michael once more. The bruises would heal, the scars would fade, but the lessons would last a lifetime. And somewhere deep inside, I felt the quiet joy of knowing that despite everything, goodness had won, not because it was easy, but because I had refused to give up. The warehouse doors opened, letting in the warm morning light. And as I stepped outside, holding my son's hand, I realized something powerful. Even after betrayal, even after heartbreak, Even after near death, there is always hope. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living with integrity, knowing that your kindness cannot be stolen. The storm was over. Michael was alive. Justice had been served. And Evelyn Harper, at 65, had finally reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her peace.